because Blair was an actor and a performer and an artiste and a sort of mountebank and a pathological liar. And it took about 10 years for British people to work out what he was like. Blair could argue for a position over there, and then he could go over there and argue with equal sincerity against the position that he'd just enunciated. He was a performer. Somebody who was more like sort of one of these stars of soap operas and so on than a politician. The interesting thing is that the British people trusted him once and then again, and then to a slightly lesser extent, even again. But the greatest damage that New Labour has done to the society isn't the Iraq War, important though that is, in relation to the Chilcot inquiry that's going on at the moment. It's not even the economic crash, substantial and devastating though that is for many, particularly as we face the prospect of a double-dip recession. The real damage that they've done to the society is the opening up, and then the opening up again, and then the opening up again, to mass migration from the second, the third and the fourth world, which between about 1999 and 2003-04 has changed the nature of the island and its internal demography out of all recognition. Parts of inner London now, parts of inner Birmingham now, Handsworth, 80% non-white. Parts of the East End of London are literally in the third world. Areas like Dalston, or Greater Hackney, or parts of Stoke Newington, or elements of the Beauvoir town, or elements of Lambeth, south of the river, parts of Newham and so on. It's as if virtually we don't exist there anymore. Nearly all of the indigenous people have got out of these areas, have fled out of them. The only people who are left are the people who are too old or too sick or too poor and can't get out. And about 4 to 5 years ago, there were lots of Polish, some Ukrainian and other immigrants who come into the European Union, cognizance, to take cheap jobs during the trashiest part of the credit and debt-fueled boom cycle that was then riding high. And Brown said he was the Iron Chancellor who was controlled movements of capital, controlled movements of labour, which is what migration is. You have a system now where our economy, and most Western economies, is locked into global structures of power and finance, where great walls of money move across the world at the touch of a screen in the city bureaus of London, Leeds, Glasgow, or wherever, where jobs move from the south of England to the north of England, to Hungary, to China, to Indonesia, and they're undercut at each level. As lots of people work in and around, or just under to just around, or just over the minimum wage. Any trouble, they're out, and they're replaced by somebody else. And in order to have an economy where you can have a mobile phone at 3 in the morning, or have a pizza at 4 in the morning, or have a plasma dish to arrive at your door in a van, with a man with a cat at 5 in the morning, and you play with some plastic, and you pay on the never never, and that this all goes on 24 hours a day, with a bit of a blip on Easter Day, a bit of a blip on Christmas Day, but otherwise it's full-on consumption without production, fueled by debt and based upon credit. And the flip side to all this cheap and easy money, which builds up almost like interconnected pyramid schemes or scams or forms of fraud, if a private individual did them, which is what many of these institutions and banks got themselves into, the flip side of this is the mass movement of people all over the world, swarming after the money, crossing over borders, crossing over continents, getting up into Europe from Africa through the Arab countries in the Libyan desert. Gaddafi's forces throw them back and allow some through, and some die in the Mediterranean, others are sunk by Italian-controlled boats, a certain proportion get in. Mafias in Turkey and elsewhere funnel people in, other people are trying to get out of Albania or out of the old Yugoslavia into the underside of the European Union. Great swathes of people are coming from war zones which have been created by the policies of certain Western leaders in Iraq, in Afghanistan, maybe in the next couple of years in Iran, because major structural changes in world power are coming. It's difficult to predict the future, but I think we're living in a very, very radical age.